So in this video, we're going to look at symmetry of functions. So graphs of equations can have symmetry with respect to one of the coordinate axes or with respect to the origin. So axis symmetry, x-axis symmetry, basically here is your x-axis right here. And so if you notice above, you have part of the graph and then below you have another part. If I was to flip the graph over, then this part is going to land on top of this part of the graph. If that happens, then we say that the graph has x-axis symmetry. And another thing to highlight here is notice that the x variable stays the same. But what happens with the y is that it gets the opposite sign. So it went from positive to negative. But if we fold the paper, this point will land on top of this one. A graph can also have y-axis symmetry. And this is our y-axis right here. So with this axis symmetry, y-axis symmetry, this part of the graph, if I fold it the long way, will land, so this part will land on top of this part. And notice here in your ordered pairs that the x's are the ones that are switching opposite signs. The y remains the same. And then the third one is the origin symmetry. And for the origin, this is the origin right in the center. What happens here is that it has both symmetries. So if we fold the long way on the y-axis, we would end up in this side here. And then you would fold on the x-axis. And so this part would land over here. So you have to do both symmetries to get that origin. If that happens, then we say you have the origin symmetry. And notice the values of x and y, they both change to opposite signs. So we can figure out symmetry by looking at the graphs, or we also have tests that we're going to be doing algebraically. So first, let's practice with the graphs here. So example 8, is there any symmetry for this graph here? So this is your y-axis, and this is your x-axis. And so notice that if I fold this graph on the y-axis, then this part of the graph would land on top of this one. So basically for the y-axis, we would be folding our paper the long way this way. Okay. So this graph does have y-axis symmetry. The second graph, this is your x-axis and this is your y-axis. Notice that this part of the graph, if I fold my paper down this way, then this part of the graph would land on top of this one. And so we say that this has x-axis symmetry. Again, notice the values of the y's here are changing. We had a +2, now we have a -2 for this point. And for this example, the x changed from -2 to +2. That's going to be a key thing for us to figure this out without the graphs. So now here, the origin. If you notice here, if I fold the graph the long way, then this graph would land on top of this side of the graph. And then if I fold down, it would fall on this graph. So this is going to have origin symmetry. So again, for origin, we're looking at, does the graph have y-axis symmetry? And then if you apply the x-axis symmetry, does it land on that bottom part of the graph? And so here, if I fold it, it lands over here. And if I fold it on the x-axis, then it's going to land on this side. Or you can look at the points. You went from 1, 1, and then